Mr. Peterson wasn't just any janitor. He was the janitor at Sunny Meadows Elementary. He knew every squeaky floorboard, every flickering light bulb, and every classroom critter that somehow found its way inside. He arrived before the sun peeked over the horizon, humming a cheerful tune as he unlocked the heavy front doors. He polished the trophy case until it gleamed and made sure Mrs. Gable's second-grade class always had enough paper towels. Sunny Meadows wasn't just a school, it was a happy place. Kids laughed in the hallways, teachers smiled, and even the grumpy old boiler seemed to hum a little louder when good grades were being handed out. Mr. Peterson felt a deep sense of pride in keeping it all clean and safe. He took his job seriously because he knew that a clean school was a happy school, and a happy school meant happy kids, ready to learn and grow. He wasn't a tall man, but he had a strong build from years of pushing heavy cleaning carts and scrubbing floors. His kind eyes always twinkled behind his glasses, and he had a warm smile for everyone he met. The children loved him, often stopping to chat or offer him drawings they had made in class. He'd always take the time to admire their artwork, praising their creativity and making them feel like real artists. He knew all the teachers by name, and even their coffee orders. He'd often surprise them with a fresh cup during a particularly busy day. Mr. Peterson was more than just a janitor, he was part of the Sunny Meadows family. He took great pride in his work, making sure everything was spotless and in perfect order. He treated the school as if it were his own home, and he cared deeply about the safety and well-being of everyone inside. Because of this, it really bothered him when, one late night, while finishing up a stubborn wax stain in the main hall, he saw a strange shadow flit past the windows, disappearing into the darkness. He wasn't sure what he saw, but he knew something wasn't right. This wasn't a place for shadows. This was Sunny Meadows. Sunny Meadows Elementary wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was a living, breathing place filled with the echoes of laughter and learning. The red brick building stood proudly on a hill overlooking the town, its windows sparkling like 1,000 friendly eyes. A big, green playground stretched out behind the school, complete with swings that soared high in the air, a twisting slide that kids loved, and a sandbox filled with castles waiting to be built. Inside, the hallways were always buzzing with activity. Colorful posters adorned the walls, showcasing student artwork and important announcements. Lockers lined the corridors, each one decorated with stickers, magnets, and personalized messages. The classrooms were bright and cheerful, filled with desks arranged in neat rows, ready for eager students to fill them each morning. The library was a quiet haven, filled with shelves overflowing with books of all shapes and sizes. Mrs. Higgins, the librarian, always greeted visitors with a warm smile and a helpful suggestion. The aroma of old paper and leather filled the air, creating a cozy and inviting atmosphere. The gymnasium echoed with the sounds of bouncing basketballs and squeaking sneakers. Mr. Johnson, the gym teacher, was always full of energy, leading the students in fun and challenging activities. The cafeteria was a bustling hub during lunchtime, filled with the aroma of freshly baked cookies and the excited chatter of students sharing stories about their day. But even more than the building itself, Sunny Meadows was about the people inside. It was about the teachers who dedicated their lives to shaping young minds, the staff who worked tirelessly to keep the school running smoothly, and the students who brought the building to life with their energy and enthusiasm. It was a community where everyone felt valued and supported. And Mr. Peterson, with his quiet dedication, was a cornerstone of that community. He made sure the floors shone, the bathrooms were clean, and the whole place felt welcoming. He knew that if the school felt safe and inviting, the kids would be able to focus on learning and growing. It was more than just a job to him, it was a calling. That's why seeing that shadow bothered him so much. It felt like a threat to everything Sunny Meadows represented. It was a disruption of the peace, a stain on the happiness that permeated the halls. The fluorescent lights hummed above Mr. Peterson as he finished scrubbing the last bit of wax off the floor. It was late, even for him. The silence of the empty school pressed in around him, a stark contrast to the cheerful chaos of the daytime. He usually enjoyed the quiet, finding it peaceful and calming. Tonight, though, the silence felt heavy, almost ominous. He straightened up, his back aching slightly, and stretched. As he turned to put away his cleaning supplies, he saw it again. A flicker of movement outside the large window that overlooked the playground. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He peered through the glass, his eyes scanning the shadows. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a figure detached itself from the darkness beneath the oak tree near the swings. It was tall and thin, shrouded in shadows, making it difficult to see clearly. Mr. Peterson squinted, trying to make out any details. The figure moved quickly, darting towards the back entrance of the school near the gymnasium. Mr. Peterson's breath caught in his throat. He knew that door should be locked. He checked it himself every night before leaving. Why was someone sneaking around the school so late? He watched in disbelief as the figure seemed to melt into the shadows near the door, disappearing from sight. He stood there for a moment, frozen in place, his mind racing. Was he seeing things? Was it just his imagination playing tricks on him? But he knew what he had seen. Someone was definitely outside, and they were trying to get into the school. A wave of protectiveness washed over him. This was his school, his Sunny Meadows. He wouldn't let anyone threaten it. He quickly grabbed his flashlight from his cleaning cart and hurried towards the back entrance, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He had to see who it was and what they were doing. He had to protect Sunny Meadows. He crept down the hallway, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Every creak of the floorboard seemed to echo loudly in the silence. He reached the back door and cautiously peered through the small window. The figure was gone. The next morning, Mr. Peterson felt a knot of anxiety twisting in his stomach. He couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure from his mind. He knew he had to report what he saw, even if it sounded a little crazy. As soon as Mrs. Davis, the principal, arrived, Mr. Peterson approached her office. He hesitated outside her door, took a deep breath, and knocked gently. "Come in." Mrs. Davis called out. Mr. Peterson stepped inside, his hands clasped nervously in front of him. Mrs. Davis, a kind but practical woman with a no-nonsense attitude, looked up from her paperwork. "Good morning, Mr. Peterson. Is everything all right?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Well, Mrs. Davis," he began, "I saw something last night, and I thought you should know." He recounted the story of the shadowy figure, describing how he saw someone lurking outside the school and trying to get in through the back door. He explained how he checked the doors and windows afterward and found everything locked, but he still felt uneasy. Mrs. Davis listened patiently, her expression unchanging. When he finished, she sighed softly and leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Peterson, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention," she said, "but are you sure you weren't just seeing things? It was late, and the shadows can play tricks on your eyes." Mr. Peterson's heart sank. He had hoped she would take him seriously. "I know what I saw, Mrs. Davis," he insisted. "There was someone out there." Mrs. Davis gave him a sympathetic smile. "Mr. Peterson, I know you care deeply about this school, but we have a very secure system. I think you were probably just mistaken. Perhaps it was an animal, or just the wind." "But..." Mr. Peterson started to protest. Mrs. Davis held up her hand gently. "I understand your concern, but I really don't think there's anything to worry about. I'll ask Mr. Henderson to double-check the security system, just to be sure, but I'm confident everything is fine." She paused and then added with a reassuring tone, "Thank you for your diligence, Mr. Peterson. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot of paperwork to catch up on." Mr. Peterson knew he wasn't going to get anywhere. He mumbled a quiet, "Thank you, Mrs. Davis," and turned to leave, feeling dismissed and disheartened. As he walked back to his cleaning cart, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't being taken seriously. He knew what he saw, and he couldn't just ignore it. He just didn't know what to do next. Despite Mrs. Davis's reassurances, Mr. Peterson couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He knew what he had seen, and he couldn't simply dismiss it as a figment of his imagination. The thought of someone lurking around Sunny Meadows, possibly with bad intentions, kept him awake at night. He felt a growing sense of frustration. He had tried to do the right thing by reporting the incident, but he had been brushed aside. He knew he couldn't just let it go. He had to do something, anything, to prove that he wasn't making things up and to ensure the safety of the school. He considered his options. He thought about calling the police, but he had no evidence, only his word. He imagined them reacting the same way Mrs. Davis had, dismissing him as a well-meaning but confused old man. Then, an idea sparked in his mind. He wasn't an artist, but he could try to draw the face of the person he had seen. Even a rough sketch might be enough to jog someone's memory or, at the very least, make others take his concerns more seriously. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The figure had been shrouded in shadows, and he only caught a glimpse of their face. But he was determined to try. He decided he would dedicate his evenings to recreating the image in his mind, capturing as much detail as he could remember. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. He might not be a police officer or a security expert, but he was Mr. Peterson, the janitor who cared deeply about Sunny Meadows. And he wouldn't let anyone threaten the safety of the school without a fight. He would use his memory, his persistence, and his dedication to uncover the truth and protect the place he called his second home. He knew it would be a long shot, but he was willing to do whatever it took. The safety of the children and staff depended on it. He would not let them down. His quiet resolve grew stronger with each passing hour. He would find a way. That evening, after his shift, Mr. Peterson sat at his small kitchen table, a blank sheet of paper and a pencil in front of him. He hadn't drawn anything since he was a boy, and even then, his artistic skills were limited to stick figures and lopsided houses. But he was determined to try. He closed his eyes, trying to conjure up the image of the shadowy figure. He focused on the shape of the face, the angle of the jaw, the way the light caught the person's eyes. He remembered a sharp nose and a thin mouth, but the details were fuzzy, like a dream fading in the morning light. He began to sketch, his hand trembling slightly. The first attempt was a disaster. The face looked nothing like what he remembered. It was too round, too cartoonish. He crumpled the paper and tossed it into the trash. He tried again, this time focusing on the eyes. He remembered them being dark and intense, almost piercing. He sketched the outline of the eyes, carefully shading in the pupils. This was a little better, but still not quite right. He spent hours that night, and many nights after that, working on the sketch. He would close his eyes, visualize the figure, and then try to capture the image on paper. He experimented with different pencils, different shading techniques. He erased and redrew countless times, growing increasingly frustrated with his lack of skill. Sometimes, he would get discouraged and want to give up. But then he would think about the children at Sunny Meadows, their bright smiles and innocent laughter, and he would find the strength to keep going. He couldn't let them down. He had to do everything he could to protect them. Slowly, gradually, the sketch began to take shape. It was still rough and imperfect, but it was starting to resemble the figure he had seen that night. He captured the sharp nose, the thin mouth, and the intense eyes. It wasn't a perfect likeness, but it was close enough. He hoped it would be enough. He knew he wasn't an artist, but he had poured his heart and soul into this drawing. It was more than just a sketch, it was a symbol of his commitment to Sunny Meadows, his determination to protect the school and its students from harm. And he wouldn't stop until he had done everything in his power to ensure their safety. With the sketch finally complete, Mr. Peterson felt a mix of pride and trepidation. He knew it wasn't perfect, but it was the best he could do. He carefully placed the drawing in a clear plastic sleeve to protect it and decided to show it to some of the teachers and staff at Sunny Meadows. The next day, he approached Mrs. Gable, the second-grade teacher, whom he knew was always supportive. He found her in her classroom, preparing for the day's lessons. "Mrs. Gable, do you have a moment?" he asked hesitantly. "Of course, Mr. Peterson," she replied with a warm smile. "What can I do for you?" He showed her the sketch, explaining the story of the shadowy figure and his efforts to recreate the face from memory. Mrs. Gable studied the drawing intently, her expression thoughtful. "Well, Mr. Peterson," she said finally, "it's interesting. But I'm not sure I recognize anyone from it. It's quite abstract." Mr. Peterson's heart sank a little. "I know it's not perfect," he said, "but does it remind you of anyone at all?" Mrs. Gable shook her head gently. "I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson. It doesn't ring any bells for me. But I appreciate you showing it to me." He thanked her and moved on to Mr. Henderson, the school's handyman. Mr. Henderson took one look at the drawing and chuckled. "What's this, Mr. Peterson?" "A new masterpiece," he joked. Mr. Peterson explained the situation, but Mr. Henderson didn't seem to take him seriously. "Come on, Mr. Peterson," he said with a dismissive wave of his hand. "You've been watching too many late-night movies. I'm sure it was just a raccoon or something." He showed the sketch to a few other staff members, but the responses were similar. Some were polite but unhelpful, while others were openly skeptical. No one seemed to believe his story or recognize the face in the drawing. Mr. Peterson felt increasingly discouraged. He had hoped that someone would recognize the figure or at least take his concerns seriously. But it seemed that everyone thought he was just making things up or exaggerating. He started to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe he was just seeing things. But deep down, he knew he wasn't. He had seen something that night, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Sunny Meadows was in danger. He just didn't know how to convince anyone else. Weeks turned into months, and the incident gradually faded from everyone's memory at Sunny Meadows, except for Mr. Peterson. He still thought about it constantly, replaying the events of that night in his mind, wondering if he could have done something differently. The sketch, once a symbol of his determination, now sat tucked away in a drawer in his kitchen, a reminder of his failure to convince anyone of the danger he believed the school faced. He still brought it out occasionally, studying it, trying to see if he could glean any new details, any clues that he might have missed. But as time passed, even Mr. Peterson began to question his own sanity. Maybe Mrs. Davis was right. Maybe he had just been seeing things. Maybe it was just his imagination running wild. The other staff members stopped asking about the sketch, and the topic of the shadowy figure became taboo. Mr. Peterson felt increasingly isolated, like he was the only one who remembered what had happened, the only one who cared. He continued his work at Sunny Meadows, cleaning the floors, emptying the trash, and making sure everything was in order. But the joy he once found in his job had diminished. He felt like an outsider, a crazy old man who saw things that weren't there. He still greeted the children with a smile, but it felt forced, less genuine. He missed the easy camaraderie he once shared with the teachers and staff. He felt like a ghost, wandering the halls of a school that no longer trusted him. The long nights at Sunny Meadows became even longer and lonelier. The silence that he once found peaceful now felt oppressive, filled with the echoes of his unanswered questions and unheeded warnings. He began to dread his shifts, wishing he could just forget about the whole thing and move on. But he couldn't. The image of the shadowy figure was burned into his memory, a constant reminder of the potential danger that still lurked just outside the walls of Sunny Meadows. And despite everyone's skepticism, despite his own doubts, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had to do something, anything, to protect the school he loved. Even if it meant facing ridicule and isolation. Even if it meant carrying the burden of his secret alone. The safety of Sunny Meadows was worth it. He just needed to find a new way to help. Meanwhile, in the neighboring towns, a series of unsettling events began to unfold. Small things started disappearing from the local elementary schools, a few computers from the library at Maplewood Elementary, some sports equipment from the gym at Oakdale, and even a box of brand new art supplies from Pine Ridge. The items stolen weren't particularly valuable, and there was no sign of forced entry at any of the schools. It was as if someone had a key or knew exactly how to bypass the security systems. The police were baffled. They investigated the break-ins, but they had no leads and no suspects. The local newspapers ran stories about the incidents, warning parents to be vigilant and urging the schools to improve their security measures. The atmosphere in the neighboring towns became tense. Parents worried about the safety of their children, and teachers were on edge, constantly looking over their shoulders. The carefree spirit that once characterized the local elementary schools was replaced by a sense of unease and suspicion. The news of the break-ins eventually reached Sunny Meadows, but Mrs. Davis dismissed them as isolated incidents that were unlikely to happen there. She assured the staff that Sunny Meadows had a state-of-the-art security system and that there was nothing to worry about. Mr. Peterson, however, felt a shiver of unease when he heard about the break-ins. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were connected to the shadowy figure he had seen months ago. He wondered if the person he saw had been scouting out Sunny Meadows, planning to break in and steal something. He wanted to warn Mrs. Davis again, but he hesitated. He knew she would just dismiss his concerns, as she had done before. He didn't want to be seen as a troublemaker or a paranoid old man. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he had to do something. He decided to take matters into his own hands, increasing his patrols around the school, paying extra attention to any suspicious activity. He knew it wasn't much, but it was all he could do. He was determined to protect Sunny Meadows, even if no one else believed him. He just hoped it wasn't too late. He felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling that something bad was about to happen. He could only hope he was wrong. Several weeks later, a news report flashed across Mrs. Davis's computer screen. A man had been arrested in a state hundreds of miles away, charged with a string of school burglaries that mirrored the ones that had plagued the neighboring towns. The article detailed how the suspect, a drifter named Silas Blackwood, had been targeting elementary schools, stealing small electronics, sports equipment, and other easily transportable items. Mrs. Davis initially skimmed the article, thinking it was just another distant news story. But then, something caught her eye. The article mentioned that police had been stumped by the lack of forced entry at the schools. Blackwood seemed to have an uncanny ability to bypass security systems, almost as if he had inside knowledge of the school's layouts and routines. A flicker of memory sparked in Mrs. Davis's mind. She remembered Mr. Peterson's story, the shadowy figure lurking outside Sunny Meadows, the drawing he had shown her. She had dismissed it at the time, attributing it to his overactive imagination. But now, seeing this news report, a seed of doubt began to sprout in her mind. She hesitated for a moment, then typed Silas Blackwood mugshot into the search engine. A series of images appeared on the screen, showing a man with a gaunt face, a sharp nose, and piercing dark eyes. Mrs. Davis gasped. The face was eerily familiar. It was the face from Mr. Peterson's drawing. She felt a chill run down her spine. Could it be possible that Mr. Peterson had been right all along? Could it be possible that she had dismissed a credible threat to Sunny Meadows? A wave of guilt washed over her. She had doubted Mr. Peterson, dismissed his concerns, and made him feel like a fool. Now, it seemed that he had been the only one who saw the danger, the only one who cared enough to do something about it. She knew she had to act quickly. She had to find Mr. Peterson's drawing and show it to the authorities. She had to do everything she could to make amends for her mistake and to ensure the safety of Sunny Meadows. She closed the laptop, stood up from her desk, and walked quickly towards the filing cabinet where she had stored Mr. Peterson's sketch, hoping it wasn't too late to right her wrong. The feeling of dread that Mr. Peterson had felt for so long now washed over her. Mrs. Davis practically flew to the filing cabinet in the corner of her office. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the lock, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to find the drawing. She had to prove to herself, and to everyone else, that Mr. Peterson had been right. She frantically searched through the files, tossing aside folders and papers in her haste. The office, usually so meticulously organized, became a chaotic mess. Where was it? Had she thrown it away? The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through her. Finally, her fingers brushed against a familiar plastic sleeve. She pulled it out and held it up to the light. There it was, Mr. Peterson's sketch, the rough lines and shading still capturing the haunting image of the shadowy figure. She stared at the drawing, comparing it in her mind to the mugshot she had seen online. The resemblance was undeniable. The sharp nose, the thin mouth, the piercing eyes, they were all there. It was as if Mr. Peterson had somehow seen into the future, predicting the face of the man who had been terrorizing elementary schools across the country. A tear rolled down Mrs. Davis's cheek. She had been so quick to dismiss Mr. Peterson, so confident in her own judgment. She had allowed her skepticism to blind her to the truth. And now, she realized the potential consequences of her mistake. Sunny Meadows could have been a target. The children could have been in danger. She knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't just sit there and wallow in her guilt. She had to do something to make amends. She grabbed her phone and dialed the local police department. "I need to report something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I have information about the school break-ins." She explained the story of Mr. Peterson and the shadowy figure, describing the drawing and its striking resemblance to the arrested suspect. The police officer on the other end of the line listened intently, his tone growing more serious with each word. "We'll send someone over right away, Mrs. Davis," he said. "Please stay where you are and don't touch anything." Mrs. Davis hung up the phone and took a deep breath. She had done what she could. Now, it was up to the police to investigate and determine if Mr. Peterson's drawing could help them solve the case. But one thing was certain, she would never again dismiss someone's concerns without giving them a fair hearing. She had learned a valuable lesson, a lesson that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. And she knew that she had to apologize to Mr. Peterson, to thank him for his vigilance and his unwavering dedication to Sunny Meadows. The two police officers who arrived at Sunny Meadows were young and eager, but Mrs. Davis could sense their skepticism as she recounted the story of Mr. Peterson and the shadowy figure. She showed them the sketch, her hands trembling slightly as she held it out. "It's just a drawing," one of the officers said, his tone dismissive. "How can we be sure this has anything to do with the break-ins?" "I know it's just a drawing," Mrs. Davis replied, her voice firm, "but look at the mugshot of the suspect. Look at the sharp nose, the thin mouth, the eyes. The resemblance is uncanny." The officers exchanged glances, then studied the sketch more closely. They had to admit, there was a similarity. "We'll take it back to the station and show it to our detectives," one of the officers said. "They can compare it to the suspect's file and see if there's a match." Mrs. Davis felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could convince them that Mr. Peterson's drawing was more than just a random sketch. Maybe she could help them solve the case and bring the suspect to justice. As the officers prepared to leave, Mrs. Davis asked, "What about Mr. Peterson? Should we tell him?" The officers hesitated. "We don't want to get his hopes up," one of them said. "It's still just a long shot. Let's wait and see what the detectives say." Mrs. Davis nodded, understanding their caution. But she couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Mr. Peterson deserved to know that his efforts were finally being taken seriously. He deserved to know that he had been right all along. As the officers drove away, Mrs. Davis made a decision. She couldn't wait any longer. She had to tell Mr. Peterson. She grabbed her coat and hurried out of her office, determined to find him and deliver the news, even if it was just a glimmer of hope. She knew she couldn't undo the past, but she could try to make things right in the present. And that started with giving Mr. Peterson the recognition he deserved. She began her search, hoping to find him before his shift ended. The weight on her shoulders felt a little lighter, knowing she was finally doing something to acknowledge Mr. Peterson's unwavering dedication. Mrs. Davis found Mr. Peterson in the cafeteria, mopping the floor after the after-school program had ended. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped slightly, but he still offered her a polite smile as she approached. "Mr. Peterson," she began, her voice filled with sincerity, "I need to talk to you about something." Mr. Peterson's smile faded slightly, replaced by a look of apprehension. He had learned to expect bad news whenever Mrs. Davis sought him out. "What is it, Mrs. Davis?" he asked, his voice quiet. Mrs. Davis took a deep breath and explained about the arrest in the other state, the school break-ins, and the mugshot of the suspect. She told him how she had compared the mugshot to his sketch and how struck she was by the resemblance. As she spoke, Mr. Peterson's eyes widened with surprise and then with a flicker of vindication. He had known it all along. He hadn't been crazy. He had seen something real. "The police came and took the drawing," Mrs. Davis continued. "They're going to show it to their detectives and see if it can help with the investigation." Mr. Peterson didn't say anything for a moment, his mind racing. He had spent months feeling like an outcast, doubting himself, and wondering if he had imagined the whole thing. Now, it seemed that he had been right all along, and his efforts might actually make a difference. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Peterson," Mrs. Davis said, her voice filled with remorse. "I should have listened to you. I should have taken you seriously. You were just trying to protect Sunny Meadows, and I dismissed you. I was wrong." Tears welled up in Mr. Peterson's eyes. It wasn't just about being right. It was about being believed, about being valued, about being respected. "It's okay, Mrs. Davis," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "It's just. I knew I saw something. And I just wanted to keep the school safe." Mrs. Davis reached out and took Mr. Peterson's hand, squeezing it gently. "You did keep the school safe, Mr. Peterson," she said. "You were the only one who saw the danger, and you did everything you could to warn us. You're a hero, Mr. Peterson. You're a true hero." A small smile spread across Mr. Peterson's face, a smile that reached his eyes and lit up his entire being. He finally felt seen, finally felt appreciated, finally felt like he belonged. The weight of the past months lifted from his shoulders, replaced by a sense of peace and pride. He was Mr. Peterson, the janitor of Sunny Meadows, and he had saved the day. Back at the police station, Detective Miller, a seasoned investigator with years of experience, examined Mr. Peterson's sketch and the mugshot of Silas Blackwood. He had seen a lot of strange things in his career, but this was definitely unusual. The resemblance between the two images was striking, even undeniable. The sharp nose, the thin lips, the intense eyes, they were all there, captured in Mr. Peterson's crude but effective drawing. Detective Miller called in his partner, Detective Jones, to get a second opinion. Detective Jones was a younger, more tech-savvy officer, but she also had a keen eye for detail. "What do you think, Jones?" Detective Miller asked, showing her the sketch and the mugshot. Detective Jones studied the images carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's definitely a match," she said finally. "The proportions are right, the facial features are consistent. It's him." Detective Miller nodded, satisfied. "I think we've got something here," he said. "This could be the break we've been looking for." He decided to contact the authorities in the state where Blackwood had been arrested. He explained the situation, describing Mr. Peterson's sketch and its uncanny resemblance to the suspect. The detective on the other end of the line was intrigued. "We knew Blackwood had been traveling around a lot," he said, "but we didn't have any solid evidence linking him to the earlier break-ins. This drawing could be just what we need." They agreed to share information and coordinate their investigations. Detective Miller sent a digital copy of Mr. Peterson's sketch to the other detective, along with a detailed report outlining the circumstances of the sighting at Sunny Meadows. As the investigation progressed, Detective Miller couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for Mr. Peterson. He was just a school janitor, an ordinary man with no special skills or training. But he had seen something, he had remembered it, and he had done everything he could to report it. And now, his efforts were about to pay off, helping to bring a criminal to justice and protect countless other schools from harm. It was a testament to the power of observation, the importance of persistence, and the value of believing in yourself, even when no one else does. Detective Miller knew that Mr. Peterson's story would be one he would remember for a long time. It was a reminder that heroes can come in all shapes and sizes, and that even the smallest act of courage can make a big difference in the world. In the other state, Detective Reynolds received the information from Detective Miller with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. He had been working the Silas Blackwood case for weeks, and he was frustrated by the lack of concrete evidence linking him to the earlier break-ins. He reviewed the details of the Sunny Meadows sighting, paying particular attention to Mr. Peterson's description of the shadowy figure. He compared the description to Blackwood's known habits and behaviors. The pieces seemed to fit. Detective Reynolds decided to use Mr. Peterson's drawing as a tool during Blackwood's next interrogation. He printed out a large copy of the sketch and placed it on the table in front of Blackwood. "Do you recognize this, Mr. Blackwood?" Detective Reynolds asked, his voice calm but firm. Blackwood glanced at the drawing, his expression unreadable. "It's a drawing," he said, shrugging his shoulders. "What's your point?" "It's a drawing of you, Mr. Blackwood," Detective Reynolds replied. "A drawing made by a janitor at an elementary school in another state. A janitor who saw you lurking around the school late one night." Blackwood scoffed. "That's ridiculous," he said. "I've never been to that state in my life." Detective Reynolds leaned forward, his eyes locking with Blackwood's. "Are you sure about that, Mr. Blackwood?" he asked. "Because this janitor seems to have a pretty good memory. And his drawing is awfully accurate." He continued to press Blackwood, pointing out the similarities between the drawing and his facial features, his known travel patterns, and his modus operandi. He showed him security footage from some of the other schools he had burglarized, highlighting the similarities in his methods. Blackwood remained defiant for a while, denying any involvement in the earlier break-ins. But as the interrogation wore on, and as Detective Reynolds continued to present him with the evidence, Blackwood's resolve began to crumble. Finally, after hours of questioning, Blackwood broke down and confessed. He admitted to burglarizing the schools in the neighboring towns, including Sunny Meadows. He described how he had scouted out the schools, identified weaknesses in their security systems, and gained access to the buildings. He even confirmed that he had been the shadowy figure that Mr. Peterson had seen that night. Detective Reynolds felt a sense of satisfaction. He had finally cracked the case, thanks to the help of an unlikely source, a humble school janitor with a good memory and a persistent spirit. He knew that Mr. Peterson's efforts would be remembered for a long time to come. The news of Blackwood's confession spread quickly through Sunny Meadows. Mrs. Davis made an announcement over the intercom, sharing the details of the case and praising Mr. Peterson for his vigilance and dedication. The students erupted in cheers, chanting Mr. Peterson's name and applauding his heroism. The teachers and staff members who had once doubted him now lined up to offer their apologies and express their gratitude. Mr. Peterson was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. He had gone from being an outcast to a hero in a matter of hours. He felt like he was living in a dream. Mrs. Davis organized a special assembly to honor Mr. Peterson. She presented him with a certificate of appreciation and a small gift, a new set of art supplies to encourage his newfound talent for drawing. The students presented him with handmade cards and drawings, thanking him for keeping them safe. They even created a banner that read, "Mr. Peterson is our hero." Mr. Peterson stood on the stage, tears streaming down his face, as he looked out at the smiling faces of the students, teachers, and staff members. He had never felt so loved, so appreciated, so valued. He stepped up to the microphone and cleared his throat. "I just want to say thank you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for letting me be a part of the Sunny Meadows family." He paused, took a deep breath, and continued. "I may just be a janitor," he said, "but I care deeply about this school and everyone in it. And I will always do everything I can to keep you safe." The students erupted in another round of applause, their cheers echoing through the gymnasium. Mr. Peterson smiled, his heart filled with joy. He was Mr. Peterson, the janitor of Sunny Meadows, and he had finally found his place in the world. He knew that he would never forget this day, the day he went from being an ordinary man to a true hero. The feeling of belonging washed over him, stronger than ever before. He was home. Life at Sunny Meadows returned to normal, but things were different now. Mr. Peterson was no longer just the janitor, he was a respected member of the community, a hero in his own right. The students continued to greet him with smiles and waves, but now there was an added layer of admiration and gratitude in their eyes. The teachers and staff members treated him with a newfound respect, seeking his advice and valuing his opinions. Mrs. Davis made sure that Mr. Peterson's contribution to the case was recognized throughout the school district and in the local community. She nominated him for a local hero award, which he received with humility and grace. The story of Mr. Peterson and the shadowy figure even made it into the local newspaper, highlighting his keen observation, his unwavering persistence, and his dedication to Sunny Meadows. Mr. Peterson became a role model for the students, teaching them the importance of believing in themselves, even when no one else does. He encouraged them to trust their instincts, to speak up when they saw something wrong, and to never give up on their dreams. He also started an after-school drawing club, sharing his newfound passion for art with the students. He taught them the basics of sketching and shading, encouraging them to express their creativity and to see the world in new and different ways. Mr. Peterson's life had changed dramatically, but he remained humble and grounded. He continued to arrive at Sunny Meadows before sunrise, humming his cheerful tune as he unlocked the front doors. He still polished the trophy case until it gleamed and made sure Mrs. Gable's second-grade class always had enough paper towels. But now, as he walked through the halls of Sunny Meadows, he felt a sense of pride and belonging that he had never experienced before. He was Mr. Peterson, the janitor who had saved the day, and he was finally home. He knew that he had made a difference in the lives of the students, the teachers, and the staff members at Sunny Meadows, and that was all that mattered. He was happy. He was content. And he was grateful for the opportunity to serve the community he loved. The memory of the long, lonely months faded, replaced by the warmth of acceptance and appreciation. He had proven that even the smallest person can make a big difference in the world. The students in Mr. Peterson's drawing club began creating portraits of him, capturing his kind eyes, his warm smile, and his gentle spirit. They presented him with the portraits as a token of their appreciation, and he proudly displayed them in his small apartment. The teachers and staff members organized a fundraising drive to help Mr. Peterson renovate his apartment. They replaced his old furniture with new, comfortable pieces, painted the walls in bright, cheerful colors, and even installed a small art studio in the corner of his living room. Mrs. Davis worked with the school board to create a new security protocol, ensuring that all staff members were trained to recognize and report suspicious activity. She also implemented a system for anonymous reporting, encouraging students and staff to share their concerns without fear of reprisal. The local police department recognized Mr. Peterson's contribution to the case by awarding him a citizen's commendation. They praised his keen observation skills, his unwavering persistence, and his dedication to his community. Mr. Peterson used his newfound platform to advocate for greater awareness of school safety issues. He spoke at community meetings, sharing his story and urging parents, teachers, and staff members to work together to create safer learning environments for children. He also became a mentor to other school janitors, sharing his experiences and offering guidance on how to be vigilant and proactive in protecting their schools. He emphasized the importance of building relationships with students, teachers, and staff members, creating a sense of community and trust. Mr. Peterson's story became an inspiration to people of all ages, proving that anyone, regardless of their background or occupation, can make a difference in the world. He showed that even the smallest act of courage can have a profound impact, and that believing in yourself is the first step towards achieving your dreams. And so, Mr. Peterson continued to serve as the janitor of Sunny Meadows, his heart filled with joy and gratitude. He knew that he had found his purpose in life, and he was committed to using his experiences to make the world a better place. He had learned that true heroism wasn't about superpowers or extraordinary feats, it was about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about caring for others, and about never giving up on what you believe in. He was Mr. Peterson, and he was proud to be a part of the Sunny Meadows family. He had finally found his happily ever after. And so, the story of Mr. Peterson and the shadowy figure became a legend at Sunny Meadows, a reminder that even the smallest voice can make a big difference, and that believing in others is essential for creating a safe and supportive community. The children learned to trust their instincts, to speak up when they saw something wrong, and to never be afraid to stand up for what they believed in. They learned that true courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about facing your fears and doing what's right, even when it's difficult. The teachers and staff members learned to listen more carefully, to value the opinions of everyone in the school, and to never dismiss someone's concerns without giving them a fair hearing. They learned that everyone has something valuable to contribute, and that true collaboration requires respect and understanding. Mrs. Davis learned a valuable lesson about humility and leadership. She realized that being a good leader wasn't about being right all the time, it was about being willing to admit when you're wrong, to learn from your mistakes, and to empower others to reach their full potential. And Mr. Peterson learned that he was more than just a janitor. He was a hero, a role model, and a valued member of the Sunny Meadows family. He learned that his voice mattered, that his actions had an impact, and that he could make a difference in the world. The story of Mr. Peterson serves as a timeless reminder to trust your gut, to listen to your inner voice, and to never underestimate the power of your own instincts. It teaches us that even when everyone else doubts you, you must have faith in yourself and in what you know to be true. It also teaches us the importance of believing others, of giving people the benefit of the doubt, and of creating a culture of trust and support. Because when we believe in each other, we can accomplish anything. And so, the legend of Mr. Peterson lives on, inspiring generations of students, teachers, and staff members at Sunny Meadows to be brave, to be kind, and to always believe in the power of the human spirit. Because in the end, it's not about what you do, but about who you are. And Mr. Peterson was, and always will be, a true hero. The end.